tells you half the truth. But what if the beginning of everything was never meant to be understood? What if the first pages of existence were not written for humans, but hidden from them? Long before empires rose, before kings carved their names into stone, before even the oldest civilizations whispered their first stories, there was a time when the world was untouched, silent, and watching. And according to ancient writings, the earth itself was not just a place, it was a witness. In the earliest revelations, there is a voice, not human, not earthly, a voice that speaks not to one nation, but to all of creation. It does not begin with comfort. It begins with a warning, a declaration that something is coming, something inevitable, something that cannot be stopped. The message is clear. The world is being observed, not just by humans, but by something far beyond. The ancient text describes a moment where the natural order itself becomes evidence. The mountains, the winds, the stars, the changing seasons, all of them moving with perfect precision. Not random, not chaotic, but controlled, designed, almost as if they are following commands given long before humanity ever existed. Think about that. Every sunrise, every storm, every shift in the sky, not just natural events, but signs. Signs that there is a system in place. And more importantly, that system has rules. The text suggests that everything in existence follows those rules perfectly. The sun never fails to rise. The moon never abandons its cycle. The stars never break formation. Nature itself is obedient. But then it asks a dangerous question. If everything in creation follows the law, why doesn't humanity? Why do humans break the order? Why do they choose chaos over structure, corruption over balance? And this is where the tone shifts. Because now, it's no longer just observation. It becomes judgment. The message warns that there will come a time when those who broke the natural order, who ignored the design, who chose their own path over the one set before them, will face something unavoidable. Not revenge, not anger, but correction. A force that restores balance. And here's where things become even more unsettling. Because the text doesn't speak like a myth. It speaks like a record. It describes a future event as if it has already been decided. As if the outcome is already written. A moment when the hidden will be revealed. When the unseen will step into the visible world. And nothing will remain secret anymore. Imagine that for a second. Every hidden truth exposed. Every secret uncovered. Every action judged. No escape. No hiding. No second chances. And then it describes something even more terrifying. It says that this moment will not come quietly. It will come with presence. A presence so overwhelming that even the strongest will not be able to stand against it. A force that doesn't need to fight, because its existence alone is enough to bring everything into submission. And yet, despite all of this, the text still points back to one thing: nature. It tells you to observe the world around you, to look at how everything functions in harmony, how nothing rebels, nothing resists. Everything plays its role perfectly, except humans. And that is the difference. That is the flaw. That is the reason the warning exists. Because humanity was given something no other part of creation received: choice. And, according to this ancient message, that choice is exactly what will lead to its downfall. But here's the question no one asks. If this warning was written thousands of years ago, who was it really for? The people of that time? Or us? Because if you look closely, the patterns described then are the same patterns we see now. Disorder, corruption, ignoring the natural balance, acting as if there are no consequences, as if nothing is watching. But what if something is? What if everything we do has always been seen? And what if the moment described in those ancient words is not just a story, but a countdown? Because the most disturbing part is not the warning itself. It's the certainty behind it. The feeling that this is not a possibility, but an inevitability. And if that's true, then maybe the real question is not whether it will happen, but when. History only tells you half the truth, but what if the signs were always in front of you, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment you would finally notice them? The ancient words don't just warn, they instruct. They tell you to look, not at stories, not at legends, but at reality itself. To observe the sky, the earth, the cycles that never fail. Because according to these writings, the greatest proof was never meant to be hidden in books. It was written into creation itself. The text describes a world that moves with absolute precision. The sun rises at its appointed time, never early, never late. The moon follows its phases without deviation. The stars remain fixed in their paths, each one obeying a command that was given long before human history began. There is no confusion, no rebellion, no error. Everything operates under a system so perfect that it leaves no room for randomness. And yet, in the middle of this perfection, there is one exception: humanity, the only creation that does not follow the order, the only creation that questions the design, the only creation that breaks the rules. And this is where the message becomes even more unsettling, because it suggests that this difference is not just a flaw, it is a choice, a deliberate separation from the system that governs everything else. Think about that. Everything in existence obeys, except us. The winds don't choose where to blow. The oceans don't decide when to rise. The stars don't wander off their paths. But humans decide. Humans change. Humans rebel. And according to the ancient warning, that rebellion is not without consequence. Because the text makes something very clear. The system does not break. It corrects. No matter how far something drifts, it will eventually be pulled back into alignment. No matter how much disorder spreads, it will eventually be confronted. And when that moment comes, it will not ask for permission. It will not negotiate. It will not delay. It will act. The message describes a future where the imbalance created by human actions reaches a point where it can no longer be ignored. A tipping point. A moment when everything that was allowed to continue suddenly stops. And what follows is not chaos. It is restoration. But restoration is not gentle. It does not come quietly. It does not spare those who created the imbalance. And this is where the tone becomes darker, heavier, almost suffocating. Because the text begins to describe a presence that is not distant, not symbolic, but real. A force that moves with intention. A force that is aware, watching, waiting. A force that has always been there. And when it arrives, it does not come alone. It comes with authority, with power, with certainty. The kind of certainty that does not leave room for doubt. The kind that makes resistance meaningless. Imagine standing in front of something that already knows every choice you've ever made, every thought, every action, every moment you believed was hidden, and realizing nothing was ever hidden. That's the level of awareness this text is describing. And that's why the warning is so intense. Because it's not telling you that something might happen. It's telling you that everything has already been accounted for. Every action has weight. Every decision has consequence. Every moment is recorded. And when the time comes, nothing will be ignored. The text keeps pushing you to observe, to compare, to understand the difference between the natural order and human behavior. It forces you to ask questions that most people avoid. Why does nature remain consistent while humanity becomes more chaotic? Why does everything follow a system, except the one creation that was given intelligence? Why do humans act as if they are separate from the rules, when everything around them proves otherwise? And maybe the most uncomfortable question of all, what happens when the system decides to respond? Because according to these ancient words, it will. There is no if, only when. And when that moment arrives, the world will not recognize itself. The familiar will become unfamiliar. The stable will become unstable. The hidden will become visible. And the truth will no longer be optional. It will be undeniable. And this is where the fear truly begins to settle in, not because of what is described, but because of how certain it sounds. There is no hesitation in the message. No doubt. No uncertainty. Only a clear, direct statement that the time will come. And when it does, nothing will remain the same. So the question is not whether these ancient words are true or not. The question is, what if they are? And if they are, then maybe everything we see today, the disorder, the confusion, the constant breaking of balance, is not random. Maybe it's part of something building, something approaching, something that has been moving closer with every passing moment. And if that's the case, then maybe the signs are not just around us. Maybe they are already happening right now, and we're just choosing not to see them. History only tells you half the truth. But what if the second half was never meant to be found? What if the deeper you look, the more dangerous the answers become? Because the ancient message doesn't just warn about what is coming. It begins to reveal why it must come. And that reason is far more unsettling than anything you've heard so far. The text starts to shift from observation to exposure. It suggests that the disorder we see is not just human weakness. It is the result of something deeper, something older. Something that began long before most people think history even started. A corruption that didn't originate on Earth, but found its way here. And suddenly, the idea of order versus chaos takes on a completely different meaning. Because what if humanity didn't just choose to break the system? What if it was influenced? The ancient writings hint at a time when boundaries were crossed, when something that was never supposed to interfere did. When knowledge that was never meant for humans was given to them. And that knowledge changed everything. It accelerated humanity beyond its natural state. It introduced power without wisdom. It created imbalance on a level the world had never experienced before. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. Think about the world today. The speed of progress. The constant push beyond limits. The desire to control, to dominate, to know everything. What if that isn't just human ambition? What if it's inherited? Because the message suggests that the corruption didn't disappear. It spread. It became part of the system, part of human behavior, part of the way the world functions now. And that's why the imbalance keeps growing. Because it's not just external, it's internal. And this is where the tone becomes even more intense, almost suffocating with realization. Because if the corruption is within the system, then the correction won't just be external either. It will reach everything. Nothing will be untouched. Nothing will be excluded. The text begins to describe a moment where the truth is not just revealed, but felt. A realization that hits all at once. A clarity so overwhelming that it removes every illusion instantly. No more denial. No more excuses. No more pretending that nothing is wrong. Just truth. Raw, direct, undeniable truth. And for most, that moment will not feel like enlightenment. It will feel like exposure. Because everything that was hidden will not just be seen. It will be understood. And that understanding will change everything. The text makes it clear that the greatest fear is not punishment. It's realization. The moment when you finally see things as they truly are. The moment when every lie collapses. The moment when every false belief disappears. The moment when you realize you were never in control, and maybe never meant to be. That's the level this message reaches. It strips away comfort. It removes the illusion of safety. It forces you to confront the idea that there is something greater, something aware, something that has always been watching and waiting for the right moment to act. And here's the part that most people don't want to think about. What if that moment is closer than we think? Because the text doesn't describe a distant future. It describes a process, a build-up, a progression towards something inevitable. And if you look closely at the world around you, it's hard to ignore the similarities, the increasing chaos, the loss of balance, the feeling that things are accelerating, moving faster than they should. Almost like something is pushing it forward, something unseen, something that doesn't need to reveal itself, because its influence is already everywhere. And if that's true, then the correction described in the ancient message is not just necessary, it's unavoidable, because a system that is out of balance cannot remain that way forever. It will respond. It has to. And when it does, the world will not be prepared. Because most people are still looking for signs in the wrong places. They expect something obvious, something dramatic, something they can point to and say, "This is it." But what if it doesn't work like that? What if the real signs are subtle, gradual, hidden in everyday reality, building quietly, until the moment they can no longer be ignored? And then suddenly, everything changes. Not slowly, not over time, but instantly. A shift so powerful that it divides everything into two moments, before and after. And once that line is crossed, there is no going back. The text leaves you with a feeling that is hard to ignore, a sense that something is approaching, not rushing, not panicking, but moving with absolute certainty, like it already knows the outcome, like it's just waiting for the exact moment to arrive. And when it does, the truth will not be a theory anymore. It will be reality, and by then, it will be too late to question it. History only tells you half the truth, but what if the final part was never meant to give you hope? What if it was meant to prepare you for something unavoidable? Because the ancient message has been building toward this point from the very beginning, not just to warn, but to reveal what happens when the system finally responds. And now, there is no more observation, no more hints, no more subtlety. Now it becomes direct. The text describes a moment where the presence that was once distant becomes undeniable. Not hidden, not symbolic, but real. A force that doesn't need to announce itself, because everything begins to change the moment it arrives. The air feels different. The ground no longer feels stable. The sense of normality disappears. And for the first time, humanity realizes something is here, not coming, not approaching, here. And in that moment, everything people believed they understood about the world begins to collapse. Because this presence does not operate like anything we know. It does not follow human logic. It does not respond to human control. It does not recognize human authority. It exists above it, beyond it, completely outside of it. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because there is nothing to negotiate with, nothing to convince, nothing to stop. The text makes it clear. This is not destruction for the sake of destruction. This is correction. A restoration of balance that has been broken for far too long. But correction at this level is absolute. It does not take sides. It does not make exceptions. It does not show favoritism. It simply restores what was lost no matter the cost. And that cost is everything that created the imbalance in the first place. The message begins to describe a separation, a division, not between nations, not between groups, but between those who followed the order and those who rejected it. And for the first time, the idea of consequences becomes real, not theoretical, not distant, but immediate. Because when the presence fully reveals itself, there is no confusion left. No one asks what is happening. No one questions what they are seeing. Because deep down they already know. They always knew. They just ignored it. And now there is no more ignoring. The truth stands in front of them, undeniable, overwhelming, final. And in that moment, the fear is not just about what is happening. It's about what comes next. Because the text suggests that once this process begins, it cannot be stopped. It cannot be reversed. It will continue until the system is fully restored, until the balance is complete again, until everything that does not belong is removed. Think about that. Everything that does not belong, not hidden, not contained, removed. And suddenly, the world is no longer a place of uncertainty. It becomes a place of clarity. But that clarity is not comforting. It's brutal, because it forces everything into its true state. No masks, no illusions, no lies, just reality. And for many, that reality will be too much to face. Because the moment of truth does not just reveal the world. It reveals you, every choice, every action, every moment you believed no one was watching. All of it seen, all of it known. And there is nothing left to hide behind. That's the level of exposure this message is describing. A complete removal of illusion. A complete confrontation with truth. And once that happens, there is no returning to what things were before. Because before no longer exists. The text leaves no room for escape, no hidden path, no second chance after the moment arrives. Only one outcome: completion, the restoration of order, the correction of everything that went wrong, and the removal of everything that caused it. And this is where the realization becomes unavoidable. This was never about punishment. It was about balance. And balance does not negotiate. It does not delay. It does not hesitate. It simply acts when the time comes. And according to this ancient message, that time is not random. It is precise, calculated, already determined. And when it arrives, it will not feel like a surprise. It will feel like something that was always going to happen. Because deep down, humanity was warned, over and over again, in ways they didn't understand, in words they didn't take seriously, in signs they chose to ignore. But now, there are no more warnings. Only the event itself. Only the moment where everything changes. And once it begins, there is no stopping it, no escaping it, no denying it, only facing it. And for the first time, understanding what those ancient words truly meant. History only tells you half the truth, but what if the part you were never told is the only part that actually matters? What if everything you've heard so far was just the beginning of something far greater, something far more real than anyone is willing to admit? Because now we reach the end of the message, not an ending filled with answers, but an ending filled with realization. The kind that stays with you. The kind that changes the way you see everything, even after the words are gone. The ancient text does not close with comfort. It does not try to calm you. It does not give you a sense of safety. Instead, it leaves you with a truth that is impossible to ignore. A truth that echoes long after the story ends. That everything you see, everything you know, everything you believe, is part of something much bigger. Something structured. Something controlled. Something that has been in motion long before you were ever here. And long after you're gone, it will continue. Because the system does not depend on humanity. Humanity depends on the system. And that changes everything. It means the world does not revolve around us. It means our choices, our actions, our existence are part of a much larger design. A design that does not break. A design that does not forget. A design that does not forgive imbalance forever. And that's the part most people don't want to accept. Because it removes the illusion of control. It replaces it with responsibility. It forces you to realize that every action matters. Every decision leaves a mark. Every moment contributes to the balance or the imbalance. And eventually, that balance will be restored. No matter what. The message ends with a sense of finality. A feeling that everything has already been set into motion. That the outcome is not something that can be changed. Only something that can be faced. And that's what makes it so powerful. So unsettling. So real. Because it doesn't ask you to believe. It doesn't try to convince you. It simply presents the possibility and leaves you to sit with it, to think about it, to question it, to feel it. And once you do, you can't unsee it. You start noticing things differently. The patterns, the order, the imbalance, the way everything seems connected even when it shouldn't be. And slowly, the idea that this might be more than just a story starts to feel less impossible. Because the truth is, the message was never just about the past. It was never just about ancient times. It was never just about something that already happened. It was always about now, about this moment, about the world you're living in, and the choices being made every single day. Because if the system is real, if the balance truly matters, if the correction is inevitable, then the question is no longer what happened back then. The question becomes, what is happening right now? And more importantly, what happens next? Because the most dangerous thing about hidden truth is not that it exists, it's that people ignore it until it's too late. And maybe that's why these ancient words still exist. Not to scare you, not to control you, but to remind you that you are not separate from the system. You are part of it. And one day, whether you believe it or not, you will face the moment it responds. So the real question is not whether this is true. The real question is, what if it is? And if it is, then maybe history didn't just hide the truth from you. Maybe it was waiting for you to be ready to see it.